In 1998, a belief, just a single thought, killed over 182,000 Americans. It wasn't, a virus or a toxin in the water.
Right. It was literally just a mindset.
Exactly. And today we're asking a question that honestly sounds a bit absurd. Is good stress real? Welcome to our deep dive.
Glad to be here. This is such a crucial topic.
Yeah, we have a really fascinating mission today. We are pulling from the research of Stanford health psychologist Dr. Kelly McGonigal, Dr. Aaliyah Crum, and a bunch of clinical studies. And we're going to fundamentally rewrite the way you, the listener, view anxiety, pressure, and your own body.
It's a complete paradigm shift, really, because for decades, the medical community and just mainstream culture, we've all treated stress as public enemy number one.
Oh, totally. The ultimate villain.
Right. Something that just needs to be eradicated completely from our lives.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because I am firmly in that camp, or at least I was. I think pretty much everyone listening right now has been conditioned to believe that stress is just inherently toxic. It causes heart disease, it ruins your sleep, ages you prematurely. If you look at a typical working adult, say someone navigating an intense corporate job in Bangkok, dealing with crazy deadlines, or just sitting in gridlock traffic at Asok intersection for 2 hours every morning.
Oh, that traffic is a perfect example.
Right. We are constantly told to avoid that stress, manage it, meditate it away. But what this research suggests is that everything we've been taught might actually be doing more harm than good.
Yeah, and that realization is what completely upended Dr. Kelly McGonigal's career. She spent a decade as a health psychologist doing exactly that, teaching people how to reduce stress.
Because she thought it was the enemy.
Exactly. She treated it as an inherent evil. And then she encountered a study that just shattered that foundation because it proved that the way we think about stress is actually more dangerous than the stress itself.
I want to get right into that study, actually, because the numbers are just staggering.
They really are. So this was a massive study starting in 1998. They tracked 30,000 adults in the U.S. over 8 years.
Wow, 30,000.
Yeah, huge sample. And they started by asking these adults two very straightforward questions. First, how much stress have you experienced in the last year? And second, do you believe that stress is harmful to your health?
Okay, so they're measuring the actual physical load of stress, but also the psychological perception of it.
Precisely. And then they simply waited. 8 years later, they looked through public death records to see who from that group had passed away.
Morbid, but necessary.
Right. And what they found at first seemed to confirm everything we fear. People who experienced a lot of stress had a 43% increased risk of dying.
Which sounds like the classic narrative, stress kills, case closed.
But here is the critical pivot in the data. That 43% increased risk of dying only applied to the people who also believed that stress was harming their health.
Wait, let me make sure I'm hearing this correctly and that you listening are grasping this. Are you saying the death rate spiked, but only for a specific psychological group?
Yes. What's fascinating here is that the people in the study who reported experiencing massive amounts of stress, but who did not view their stress as a harmful thing, they had the absolute lowest risk of death of anyone in the entire study.
No way.
Seriously. Their risk of dying was even lower than the people who reported experiencing very little stress.
That is just deeply counterintuitive.
Yes.
So the people with the most stress, but the right mindset, outlived the people with basically no stress.
Yeah, the mortality math on this is incredibly sobering. When researchers extrapolated those percentages across the population over those 8 years, they estimated that 182,000 Americans died prematurely.
Just from the belief.
Exactly. Not from stress. From the belief that stress is bad for you. That actually makes the belief itself the 15th largest cause of death in the U.S. at that time.
Let me push back on this a little because we really need to understand the mechanism here.
Yeah.
How does a belief actually kill you? It sounds exactly like a nocebo effect.
That's a great comparison.
Because we all know what a placebo is, right? Believing a sugar pill will cure you actually makes you feel better. And so this is the dark mirror of that. Believing something is toxic actually makes it physically toxic. But how does that happen?
That is the exact right question to ask. Mindsets aren't just, fleeting thoughts. They are core beliefs that basically act as the operating system for your biology.
Okay.
When your brain perceives a threat, and in this case, the threat is your own belief that the stress is destroying your body, your nervous system follows suit. It interprets the situation as a literal, crisis.
So it triggers like a panic mode.
Right, a chronic inflammatory response. Your blood vessels constrict, your immune system functions differently, and over time, that chronic inflammation damages your cardiovascular system. The belief literally creates the biological toxicity.
So if a negative mindset creates an inflammatory cascade that can actually kill you, the logical next step is, well, can a positive mindset physically improve your health? Can changing how we think about a physical reality alter our literal biochemistry?
It absolutely can. And to understand how this works in a practical setting, we really have to look at Dr. Aaliyah Crumb's research. She did this brilliant study with hotel housekeepers.
Oh, yes, the housekeeper study. Let's lay out the reality for these women first, because if you think about their daily jobs, they are pushing these massive heavy carts down endless hallways.
Yeah. Vacuuming, changing heavy beds.
Scrubbing bathrooms.
Yeah.
It is incredibly grueling physical labor. But society tells us that, quote unquote, exercise is something you do in a gym, wearing specific clothes, running on a treadmill.
Right, exactly.
So when surveyed, these workers didn't see themselves as getting any exercise at all. They just saw it as work, a daily grind.
Their bodies were doing the work, but their brains were not categorizing it as beneficial. So Dr. Crumb split them into two groups. The control group was told nothing, but the other half received a really simple 15-minute presentation.
Just 15 minutes?
Just 15 minutes. The researchers explained that the physical labor they did every single day actually met the Surgeon General's criteria for an active, healthy lifestyle. They were explicitly told that their daily tasks were giving them the exact same physical benefits as a targeted workout.
So there were no behavioral changes at all. Like, they didn't tell them to work faster or eat more protein or join a gym on the weekends.
None. Just a shift in how they framed their reality. And 4 weeks later, the results were astounding. The informed group, the ones who shifted their mindset to view the daily grind as beneficial exercise, they actually lost weight.
Whoa.
Their blood pressure significantly dropped, their body fat percentage decreased, and they even reported liking their jobs more.
We really need to dig into the how here, because frankly, it sounds like magic.
Yeah.
How does a short presentation physically change someone's blood pressure?
It really comes down to how the brain regulates the body based on expectation. When the housekeepers viewed their work as just a stressful, exhausting grind, their bodies were likely producing a higher ratio of stress hormones associated with wear and tear.
Like they were under attack.
Exactly. But the moment they reframed that exact same physical exertion as beneficial exercise, the brain stopped sending signals of depletion. It started optimizing the body for fitness.
Changing the cardiovascular tone.
Right, and metabolic function. The control group, doing the exact same labor but without the mindset shift, saw zero changes in their health markers.
That's wild. Let's bring this out of the hotel and into the everyday life of a typical working adult. Let's say you're commuting in Bangkok. You are jammed onto a incredibly crowded BTS train during rush hour.
Oh, the worst.
Or you're stuck in awful traffic, it's pouring rain, you're going to be late. It is so easy to frame that entire experience as a soul-crushing grind. But if you consciously reframe the mental gymnastics of navigating your day, or the endurance required to manage your packed office schedule as active engagement as building stamina, you are biologically changing the outcome.
You are literally changing the cocktail of hormones your body produces. Let's look at the chemistry for a second. When you experience a high-pressure situation, your body releases cortisol.
Right, the famous stress hormone.
Yeah, we've all heard of it. It gets a bad rap. But your body also releases a hormone called DHEA.
Okay, let's pause and clarify the jargon here for everyone.
Right.
What exactly is DHEA doing differently than cortisol?
So DHEA is a neurosteroid. It's a hormone that actually helps your brain grow from stressful experiences. It promotes neuroplasticity, which means it helps your brain wire new connections.
So instead of just pumping out panic juice, our body is also releasing a brain growth potion.
Exactly. And it also counters the negative inflammatory effects of cortisol. In endocrinology, the ratio of DHEA to cortisol in your body is actually called the growth index.
Let me try a metaphor here. So cortisol is like the fire alarm going off in the building. It wakes everyone up, spikes your awareness to the danger, but it's really loud and exhausting.
Right.
And DHEA, on the other hand, is like the IT guy coming into the building during the chaos to rapidly upgrade the servers while everyone is awake, ensuring the system doesn't crash next time. It's actively rewiring you to handle the problem better.
That is a fantastic analogy. And people with a higher growth index, meaning more of that IT guy DHEA relative to the fire alarm cortisol, They perform significantly better under pressure and recover much faster.
That makes total sense.
And here's the kicker. The key to releasing more DHEA is purely based on how you perceive the stress. If you view the traffic, the deadline, or the difficult client as a fundamental threat to your survival, you get a massive cortisol spike. But if you view it as a challenge to be navigated, your body produces that brain-growing DHEA.
Which perfectly aligns with how Dr. McGonigal redefines stress entirely. Instead of saying stress is when everything is going wrong, she offers a completely different definition. She says, stress is what arises when something you care about is at stake.
That definition completely strips away the toxicity. I mean, think about it. If you aren't stressed about a major presentation at work, or an argument with your partner, or a big project you're launching, it just means you don't care about it. Stress is simply a biological indicator that you are meaningfully engaged in your life. A totally stress-free life is, quite frankly, often a life devoid of deep purpose.
Okay, I am with you on the chemistry and the philosophy, but let's get into the physical reality for a second. Because it's one thing to sit comfortably in your living room and say, oh, stress just means I care.
Yeah, much easier said than done.
Right. It is an entirely different universe when you are standing outside a boardroom, about to walk in and pitch to your bosses, and your heart is pounding so hard you can feel it in your teeth.
Yes, the acute physical response, that is where most people get derailed. They feel the racing heart, the sweaty palms, the shallow breathing, and their brain instantly interprets it as failure. They think, my body is failing me, everyone is going to see that I can't handle this.
To really understand what's happening in that exact moment, we have to talk about the social stress test study by Dr. Jeremy Jameson. And I'll be honest, reading the methodology for this study gave me secondhand anxiety.
Oh, it is notoriously brutal in the world of psychology. The researchers brought participants into a lab and told them they had to immediately deliver a 5-minute speech on their personal weaknesses. But they weren't speaking to a camera. They had to speak to a panel of evaluators who were explicitly trained to give intensely negative, discouraging, nonverbal feedback.
Right, so they're standing there pouring out their weaknesses, and the evaluators are frowning, crossing their arms, sighing loudly, rolling their eyes at them.
That's awful.
And if that wasn't bad enough, the second the speech ended, the participants had to do complex mental math out loud, counting backward from 996 in increments of 7.
All being yelled at.
Yes. If they made a mistake, the evaluators shouted at them to start over, telling them they were going too slow.
Yeah.
It is quite literally a corporate nightmare scenario.
It's perfectly designed to trigger a massive acute stress response. Now, they split these terrified participants into 2 groups. One group got no instructions at all, but the other group was shown a short 3-minute video right before the test began. The video explained that the physical symptoms of stress they were about to feel, the racing heart, the heavy breathing, they were not signs of failure. They were actually signs that the body was mobilizing energy to help them rise to the occasion.
And what actually happened to their bodies during the test?
The group that watched the 3-minute video completely transformed their biological response. They shifted from what we call a threat response to a challenge response.
What's the physical difference there?
Well, in a threat response, which is your classic fight or flight, your blood vessels physically constrict. Less blood flows efficiently, fear takes over, and inflammation spikes. But in a challenge response, the blood vessels stay relaxed. The heart pumps more efficiently, basically mimicking the physiological state of aerobic exercise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, their DHEA levels spiked, they were focused, and they actually performed significantly better on both the speech and the math test.
You know, here's where it gets really interesting to me. Think about a professional athlete. Right before a massive game, an athlete will jump up and down, they'll slap their chest, listen to intense music. They are deliberately trying to amp up their nervous system.
Right.
But an office worker, before a big meeting, tries to do the exact opposite. We hide in a corner, take deep breaths, try to force ourselves to calm down. Aren't a racing heart and sweaty palms a sign that I'm failing?
This is where we fundamentally misinterpret our own biology. Your heart is racing because it is desperately trying to pump more oxygen to your brain so you can think clearly and solve the problem.
That makes a lot of sense.
Your body is unlocking stored glucose to give you energy. The athlete understands that this energy payload is necessary for peak performance. But the office worker has been conditioned to believe that this exact same energy is a panic attack waiting to happen.
So the intervention is literally catching your own negative thoughts in real time. You feel the butterflies in your stomach, you feel the heat in your face, and instead of thinking, I'm too nervous, I'm going to bomb this, you consciously reframe it as, I'm excited. My body is giving me the biological energy I need to crush this presentation.
Exactly. You take the identical physical sensations and assign them a productive meaning. That single mental shift dictates whether your blood vessels constrict in fear or dilate in readiness.
It's incredible.
Okay.
So vasodilation is the internal mechanism that keeps the blood flowing. But what happens long term? Because if I am constantly in a challenged state, constantly ramping up my heart to perform, doesn't my heart eventually just wear out from the effort?
You would think so, but the stress response actually has a built-in repair mechanism. And this brings us to one of the most surprising hormones in the human body, oxytocin.
Okay, let me push back heavily here. Because when I hear oxytocin, I immediately think of the cuddle hormone.
Most people do.
Right. It's the chemical released when a mother holds her newborn baby, or when you hug a loved one. It makes us feel warm, fuzzy, connected. Why on earth is my body releasing a cuddle hormone when I am stressed out of my mind? Honestly, when I'm overwhelmed by a massive deadline, the absolute last thing I want to do is talk to other people. I want to shut my door, turn off my phone, and be left entirely alone. Why would biology push me to connect?
It is a brilliant evolutionary survival mechanism called the tend-and-befriend response. Yes, oxytocin is the cuddle hormone, but what almost no one realizes is that it is also a primary stress hormone.
Wait, really?
Yes, your pituitary gland pumps it out during a stress response right alongside adrenaline and cortisol. Your biological stress response is nudging you to tell someone how you feel, because evolutionarily, isolating yourself during a crisis is dangerous. Your brain is priming you to seek social support, to notice when other people in your pack are struggling.
Okay, so it's a behavioral nudge to build like a biological buddy system. So if I'm overwhelmed at work, helping a coworker out for 5 minutes might actually protect my own heart.
Because oxytocin doesn't just work on your brain, it works directly on your cardiovascular system. It is a natural anti-inflammatory. Your heart actually has specialized receptors for oxytocin on the myocardium, the heart muscle itself.
Oh, wow.
When oxytocin binds to those receptors, it helps heart cells regenerate and heal from any stress-induced damage.
Wait, so by reaching out and connecting with someone when I'm stressed, I am physically dosing my own heart with anti-inflammatory medicine.
Literally, your heart physically gets stronger when you connect with others under stress. And there is a remarkable study from the University of Buffalo that proves how powerful this is. Researchers tracked 1,000 adults, measuring their stress levels and their community involvement. Predictably, for the people who were isolated and dealing with severe stress, their risk of dying increased by 30%.
Yeah, that tracks with everything we know about isolation.
But, and this is a massive data point, for the people who experience severe stress, but who spent time caring for others, volunteering, or staying deeply connected to their friends and community, there was zero correlation between stress and negative health outcomes. None.
Zero correlation. The stress had absolutely no negative impact on their mortality simply because they were engaged with other people.
Right. Activating that tend and befriend response activates areas of the brain associated with trust, empathy, and courage, while simultaneously decreasing the brain's fear centers. You literally become biologically braver and physically more resilient when you choose to connect.
We have covered so much ground today. From the psychoneuroimmunology of a belief, to housekeepers changing their blood pressure with a thought, to oxytocin repairing heart tissue. But for the person listening right now, maybe they are on the SkyTrain or sitting at their desk. We need to distill this into reality. Let's break this deep dive down into 3 highly actionable everyday takeaways treated as biological biohacks.
I think the first and perhaps most immediate takeaway is to acknowledge and reframe the physical. Think about your next big meeting or high-stakes conversation. When your palms start sweating and your heart rate spikes, that is not your body telling you to run. That is your body delivering a glucose and oxygen payload to your brain so you can be sharp. Say out loud, "My body is giving me energy." It literally changes your vascular response from threat to challenge.
Don't fight the physical response.
Yes.
Harness it. I love that. Takeaway number 2, reconnect with your values. Remember the definition we discussed, stress means you care. When you are buried in the daily hassles of life, maybe you're stuck on a crowded BTS train or grinding through a tedious report, take a moment to remind yourself why you were doing it.
That's so important.
Are you providing for your family? Are you building a career you care about? When you connect the annoying, stressful task to your deeper values, your brain shifts from producing inflammatory cortisol to producing brain-growing DHEA.
And takeaway number 3, tend and befriend. When you feel overwhelmed, your instinct will be to isolate. You want to shut your door and muscle through it alone. Do the exact opposite. Go grab a coffee with a colleague. Or better yet, take 5 minutes to help a coworker who is also struggling. It isn't just a nice thing to do, it releases oxytocin in your own bloodstream, physically repairing your heart cells and building biological resilience.
I love how actionable those are. It really puts the power back in our hands. But to wrap up our deep dive today, I want us to look at this from one final, slightly provocative angle. We've talked entirely about how our own mindsets affect our own bodies, but what about the people around us?
That is the ultimate frontier of this research. If our mindsets physically alter our biology, what happens when we constantly vent to our coworkers or our families about how stressed and burned out we are? Mindsets are socially contagious.
Right.
If you are constantly verbalizing that the workplace is a toxic grind, you aren't just expressing frustration. You might be biologically sabotaging the people around you by infecting them with a nocebo effect.
Wow. Are we triggering an inflammatory response in our kids or our colleagues just by the way we talk about our day? That completely changes the responsibility we have over our own words. It turns out that diagnostic landscape of human psychology isn't a dead end. If you can change your mind, you really can change your biology. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Now get out there, harness that energy, and embrace your next big challenge.